Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. So we're here for another episode of Through the Gates podcast, and we've got Sam Westfall with Archery N Motion and the Valor Archery Challenge. And Sam and I have been working together the last couple of years. You came down to Outdoorsman Days, and when we were in the middle of the fight for Proposition 127, not only donated some time, but donated some brain cells probably. So
one or two at least.
Yeah. So Sam, introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of background, where you come from, what you're doing, and maybe a little bit why you're involved in what we're trying to accomplish as well.
Sure. So we'll start off with, I'm from Colorado. Grew up east of Boulder. Been a hunter since I was age 12, so now we're 37 years in as a hunter and competitive shooter. Joined the Army, got medically discharged after being crushed by a tank, served 7 years, got into a 22-year-long IT career, which got me into the technology space. Started 2023, I walked away from the professional corporate career and said I'm going to go do my own thing. So that started Archery N Motion, which is a moving target platform for 3D archery targets. And then last year, about mid-year 2024, spun up Valor Archery Challenge as using archery as therapy for the military and veteran community, help with mental health and PTSD.
Does that have any crossover with what Guy Duplantier is doing? I mean, to where there's similar type stuff, but maybe not as challenging physically as what Guy's trying to do for the pack-em-out challenges, correct?
So their pack-out challenges, they're really focused towards the bow hunters and kind of that niche area to keep folks healthy and practicing and working out throughout the year so that they're ready for the hunt when the season comes. Mm-hmm. While I do have an aspect to that, I do have some workout programs built into the Valor Archery Challenge. Really, it's more about using archery as therapy, getting that camaraderie, that community, that connectedness. So for those that are transitioning out of the military, they can meet other veterans, even some civilians along the way, so they can build their network and establish that. For those veterans that are probably need to get out of the house and not be lonely, that's going to reintroduce them back to the military community, give them that connection that they need so they don't go commit suicide in a parking lot. And then for the civilians, it gives them an opportunity to really connect with those that served and figure out how they can help and where they fit.
So some of these guys hunt, but
very
not
much
all
so.
of them.
Not all of them,
so
but that's
some of his competition.
It is a level of competition. It's really more of a fun shoot, but it will, for those that are new to the sport, because we do offer rental gear and rental programs and coaching programs for them, it could get them into that hunting space as well so that they can figure out if hunting is where they want to be.
So how long have you been doing that now?
A little over a year now.
And the level of engagement, the level of community acceptance has been pretty broad.
Phenomenal. Across the country, so I've had just shy of 40 different companies that have sent me prizes for donation raffle prizes. Huge level of support from that perspective. Athlon Optics is one of the key sponsors there. They sent me a pair of binos and a rangefinder for every event. So, I mean, it's been huge. Throughout the local Colorado community, from veteran service organizations and veteran hunting, out fishing, outdoor organizations have all stepped up and say, yeah, we want to help participate as well. So it's been huge.
What's the age bracket of normally what you get to participate?
So because I've got kids rental bows, I'm bringing military families to the table as well. So we're starting them young, and then we're going all the way up through guys in their 60s and 70s that have been shooting for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. And you're located out of Colorado Springs.
Correct.
But most of your events are held where now?
The Front Range. So yeah. I just had an event this past Saturday on Fort Carson. May I'll be up here in Bailey. I'll be back to Fort Carson in June. Greeley in July, and then with you down at the Outdoorsman Days in August.
Yeah, we're going to be down there on August 8th and 9th in Florence, Colorado, and you're going to help run that, something that you did in conjunction with the Colorado Bowhunters Association last year.
Correct.
They'll be a participant as well as this year, but we're going to kind of give you some of the reins to
we're going to reins,
yeah, to where you can turn around and make it bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger.
And we're going to bring moving targets to the table, so now that really shows what Outdoorsman Days should be.
Yeah. Explain the moving target side of it.
So everybody that shot archery for a number of years knows that we shoot at stationary targets, whether it's paper on the wall or whether it's a 3D target, but it's always sitting still. And that's great. That's fantastic practice, but it's not realistic. So bringing a moving target to the plate really changes the perspective. I can take anything from a squirrel target all the way to the full-size buffalo. We can throw it out there at 100 yards with wireless controls, and that really changes the game on what you're practicing with, so that you're not just shooting at that stationary target. You have to realize what your timing on your bow is, what the speed of your bow is, how fast is your arrow in flight, and what that looks like at distance. We had a bunch of folks at the Outdoorsman Days last year that were very humbled by that moving target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're trying to do something, and I just started shooting a bow. My shoulder's not conducive for me shooting very much of a bow right now. But I always used to be the guy that always criticized archery hunters or bow hunters. And because when I was a kid, my grandpa said, the Indians were smart enough to give it up and you're dumb enough to take it up. and so that kind of stuck with my head. And then I actually, at our own event, Outdoorsman Days, I actually won an auction item for a bow. And John Vernetti, who you know,
Yep.
John recently closed his store down in Canyon City. He's going to be at Outdoorsman Days on Friday.
That'll be great.
Sportsman's Days on Friday.
Yep.
But John got me the bow, got me set up on stuff. It's a humbling experience to turn around and see what you have for a 3-inch target at 25 yards. But if that 3-inch target is moving at 2 or 3 miles an hour, it's a different deal.
Yep. And we've took it one step further with our new monster mover, which is a oval track. So think race car, but with moving targets. So 3 miles an hour, 76-foot linear distance. So it gives you quartering to, quartering away, broadside, frontal, and 12 or 13-foot distance change all in its same circular shot pattern. So you can really learn how to shoot at a moving target.
And then how far is the distance that typically you're shooting at?
If I'm nice, I put it at about 30 to 40. If I'm evil, and depending on the day, Outdoorsman Days, it might be out there at 60 to 70.
And then you say it's an oval track, so what's the close end to the far end?
So 13-foot distance change.
13 foot. So that's pretty significant too when you're flinging an arrow.
When you're slinging an arrow, yeah.
Yeah. How did you get into that? Is that something that you helped create, or
it's entirely out of my brain? So my buddy and I went to Colorado Total Archery Challenge 2022. We had a great time, had a wonderful weekend. At the end of the Saturday, we got off the mountain. We were having a beer. He said, "Man, that was a lot of fun." I said, "I agree." He said, "You know what it was missing, though?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "It's missing a moving target." Well, my time in the Army was a tank mechanic, and so that got me into heavy metal and welding. My 22-year IT career had the technology background to figure out how to use the computers to make it work. Then you take the 15 years worth of competitive archery and 36 years as a competitive shooter and said, I can make this work and I can figure out how to make it work. So 16 months in design, we brought the first one to the table, which was the straight line mover at the Outdoorsman Days.
Yeah, we saw that. Yep. That's how we got connected.
And now it's the monster, which is it's that oval track, and it's a beast.
Is that solar operated, battery operated, generator?
So the monster is battery operated, 36 volt, hanging off the back panel of the mover. Runs off of two 36 volt rototiller tires, motorized, that are pulling on the front end of it, and it's just running around a 1-inch steel tube track that keeps it mounted to the ground.
There's nobody else in Colorado that's using anything like that.
There's nobody in the country that's doing this.
Really? So if you want to experience a one-time deal, this is it.
This is it.
Yeah. And so how many events do you have in the summer?
So we got 6 going right now. So April, May, June, July, August, and then I'm working on an October event as well.
And so I'm just reading some of your literature here, and it's got, you say 2 courses, 40-plus targets. Now, that was last week.
That was last weekend.
So do all the events mirror each other, or do you add some hitches and giddy-ups?
Well, we're going to add some technical difficulties to it along the way. So last weekend, we incorporated a fence line shot. So 7 foot out from the actual target, but that top line of the fence line went directly over the vitals of that target. So you got to figure out how to shoot it over or under that fence line without clipping your arrow along the way. So really making some challenge without making it overly difficult. So new or experienced shooter, doesn't matter. You're going to have fun.
Mm-hmm. So last year, because of 127 that we were fighting, I ended up going to a few of the pack mount challenges. The guy and those guys had invited me to. More than anything, to support them, so we could try to get some buy-in from their participants to support us.
Right.
The type of people that you get are not just military.
It's military, veterans, and open to the public. So I'm going a little more broad spectrum. Like I said, theirs is very niche focused towards true bow hunters. I'm going a little more broad. I want to bring people using that archery as therapy to the archery space. If you've never shot before, if you need something to get out of your own head, archery is the best place to be. And then for those that want to get into hunting, here's an opportunity to sling a few arrows for a very cheap price tag. You're out there, you're slinging arrows, you're getting a little bit of camaraderie along with it. You're having a lot of fun. And then if you decide to take that the next step further into that bow hunting space, here we are.
So are you or the people that you're associated with capable of turning around and somebody walks up to you and says, I've never shot a bow, I want to get into this and this. Do you direct them to somebody, or are you capable of doing all of the introduction stuff and initiation stuff yourself?
So I'm a certified coach already. So
Right.
I can grab you and have you shooting in a bow in 20 minutes or less if you've never picked up a bow. I've got, for last weekend, we had 3 different certified coaches that showed up as volunteers to help grab people that have never shot before, take them over to the entry-level course, take a bow, take an arrow, show them what to do, walk them through a few shots, train them for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then turn them loose.
So they don't have to have their own equipment to be able to show up to this, to be able to learn about it and try to indoctrinate themselves.
Correct. I've got traditional bows, both kids and adults, 26 pounds for the adults, and then 15 pounds for the kids. Super lightweight. Anybody can grab it, pull the string back, let an arrow fly, and you're at least hitting foam.
And for somebody that might be listening to this, traditional in the sense is what?
It's stick and string.
Okay.
It's not the compound.
So
bows.
long bow,
recurves,
that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And the compound stuff. I mean, you people are shooting in this as well with compounds.
Absolutely. That's where the experienced shooters are coming out to play. They're bringing their compounds. They're going out there and having fun.
So what you call the traditional? Is it instinctive shooting? Or is it
I would say that's probably closer. Understanding that you're holding the draw weight back longer, so it takes a little bit more effort to hold that back for any period of time. So really, it's just pull the string back, get it to the corner of your mouth, let that arrow fly.
How many guys are actually using that sort of a weaponry for hunting anymore compared to the compound stuff?
I would say it's still probably in the 10 to 20% range. So for Colorado, 2023 numbers, last I knew, we had about 12 to 13,000 bow hunters through the state. So I would probably say 20% of that stuff still probably traditional.
Yeah. On the competition side, I mean, this is a fun shoot, but the competition side, percentage-wise, how many people show up with the traditional
I would say
stuff?
less than 5%.
Really?
Yeah.
It's all compound. I mean, for the most part.
Most of the traditional shoots, they're used to focusing on a target that's full broadside, that's 20 or maybe 30 yards or less, and that's really their happy place. We got targets that go out to 40 to 50 yard range, but then we've also got the moving targets. We've got some scenario shots. So draw and hold is one of them. And this past weekend, it was a draw and hold your bow back for as long as you can before shooting 27 yards to a Yeti target. But there was a steel pillar directly in front of the steel, or in front of the vitals on that Yeti target. So if you're just an inch off, that arrow's shattered.
Yeah. Guys are shooting, what sort of a arrow are they shooting at these competitions?
So predominantly hunting setups. I would say there's very few. When you get into the 3D space, there's a few folks that show up with the great big fat target arrows. But in this type of scenario, the fat arrow is not going to benefit you at all. You want those skinny arrows. You want those hunting setups, because that's really going to be realistic towards what you're going to do later on in the season.
And I'm ignorant because I'm still learning on that side myself. I'm smart on a lot of things, but not so much the archery stuff.
That's why you bring me along.
Yeah, Is it aluminum? Is it graphite? Is it wood? I mean,
Carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber.
Yep. And rolled and wrapped carbon fiber.
And so when you guys shooting traditional, what sort of arrow?
You can still find some wood arrows, few and far between. You're really getting into, even the aluminum arrows are kind of going out of phase for the traditional shooters. A lot of it's even carbon fiber in that space.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. What's the reason? Flies better, lasts longer? What?
Lasts longer. Yeah. Wood, if it hits anything hard, it shatters. It's may or may not deflect. Versus carbon fiber is going to bend and fold and wrap around things. So not necessarily steel, but if you're talking about mule deer bone or elk bone, that carbon's going to weave around a rib bone.
Your events typically last how long?
Depends on the setup of the course and the ability of the shooter. When I put it all together on Saturday, when we went and shot it and did a test run on it, 42 targets. My buddy and I, just the two of us, we were done in about an hour and a half. But I move fast. So,
and you didn't have anybody before you or behind you, so
correct.
I mean, you're just walking through
Walking
motions.
Yep.
How many people did you have this last weekend?
So, despite the incredible cold on Saturday and the
cold and snow,
3 rounds of snow, we still had 26 people show up and still had a great time.
and you probably had more people that were scheduled to show up, but the weather kind of turned the
About another
the crappy
about another
part.
15 that were registered that didn't show up. And all right, that's all right.
But that's a pretty good deal because I mean that was the first one of the season,
First one.
first one period.
First one, period.
Okay.
So this is a no-name event that nobody has any idea. Unless you know me from on the Archery N Motion side, you really had no idea what to expect. So to have almost 40 people register, 26 to show up, I'll take that as a win all day.
Are you working with any particular archery shops or associations to help from a variety of different perspectives?
So thankfully, most of the shops have offered to share my flyers and share the information out. I'm not asking local shops to really jump in or participate because I know they've got their own things going on, and I know they've got their own events. I will say that in a lot of ways that this may step on some of them, and from the ASA, the IBO, RMA, CSA, all the different archery associations that are across the country, I don't want to play in their same space, so I'm not necessarily playing by their same rules because I'd rather bring the moving targets to the plate where they don't allow those. I'd rather bring different shot scenarios, hard quartering to, hard quartering away shots, small targets, which most of those groups don't want. They want to see that full-size standing elk at 40 yards in the middle of the open field so that it gives everybody an ample opportunity shot. I want to make it a challenge.
Cash prizes, or is it all just prizes?
Just so with your registration fee covers a raffle ticket. The raffle ticket goes into the bucket, and that's prize bucket. So
Okay. Give us a rundown of just because I'm running it, what do you think we're going to do down at Outdoorsman Days in August in Florence?
my goal right now is to push for about 400 participants.
Well, that'd be a big deal. 400 arrows flying around out there.
That's what I'm shooting.
And so hypothetically, let's just say you could get 300 to 400 people there. Is that, in your vision, is that over a 2-day span, or is that one competition, one interaction? How do you envision that?
So right now, with what we've got designed for the Valor Archery Challenge side, is we've got time slots set up. So think of it like a golf course, where your golf course has knock time, and they release 10 to 15 people every half hour onto the golf course so that it keeps the flow moving forward. Total Archery Challenge does something similar. I'm changing it a little bit in that I'm doing 15 people every half hour so that the course doesn't get truly crowded and it keeps that momentum moving forward. If you look at an 8-hour day for the Outdoorsman Days, 15 to 20 people every half hour really isn't that many. So
Exactly.
So it keeps the momentum and allows us to kind of...
And that facility down there at Pathfinder Regional Park is good enough for what you want to try to do on that. I mean, it seems like a...
Flat level ground is easy to walk on. I can make enough challenge in the shot scenarios that it'll be a struggle bus for a lot of people.
What about physically challenged individuals?
Pathfinder was fairly flat, fairly level. I would say as long as it's not muddy raining like it was last year, we could probably get some wheelchairs out there if we needed to.
What about working with like outdoor buddies and stuff? Have you worked with Larry and on any of that? And is it
Not familiar
the
with
track machines, the track machine wheelchairs?
Oh, it'll roll out there without a blink.
Yeah. And have you seen where archers have wanted to participate in shoots like that or in a hunting situation from a track machine?
From a hunting perspective, there's plenty of groups that take disabled veterans out for hunts, and those are been wildly successful across the country. I'd love to get them to some of my events. We're just not there yet.
You bet. Yeah. Well, and they're going to be down at Outdoorsman Day set up, so it might be it might be a good time. And Larry's looking forward to coming down and bringing a plethora of their stuff because they have stuff beyond track machines themselves, so track chairs themselves. So maybe we could turn around and just incorporate that and show people the true tools that are out there for a lot of people to participate with.
Yeah.
What have you done with your life? You were in the military.
Correct.
You're in IT.
Yep.
Give us a little bit of rundown of before you started this. How did you get into this? You were working on tanks. It's not like you were turning around and shooting bows and arrows in the military.
When I got out of the military, it medically separated, so that means I had every intention of doing a full career. I got crushed by the tank. I got medically separated, which spun me into a spiral of depression, suicide, alcoholism, in all the wrong scenarios. I was still shooting competitive firearms. Alcohol, depression, firearms, really not the best scenario. Buddy of mine grabbed a hold of me a few years in, and he finally looked at me and said, you realize that after every shooting event that you go to, your personality changes and you're kind of an ass. I said, I didn't know that. but it takes somebody outside of you to see it and put that perspective to it. So he grabbed a bow and he put it in my hand. He said, just send an arrow downrange. What's this going to do for me? He said, just shut up and try it. I did. I asked for a second arrow, and I haven't looked back since. 2 years ago, I was invited for a whitetail hunt up in Wyoming with one of the veteran groups. Asked them if it was rifle or bow hunt. They said rifle. Guys, I haven't touched a rifle in 13 years. They said, well, do you know how to shoot? Yes, is the answer. So day 2, dropped the whitetail with a rifle that I haven't shot in 13 years. Everybody just looked at me and went, thought you said you didn't shoot. I said, I haven't shot in years. Doesn't mean I don't know how. So, but the bow has really become my therapy for the last 15 years, using it for the calm, the quiet, the zen, the taking out the stress, the anxiety, PTSD, and depression, and meeting some good connections and meeting some other connections.
Well, like me? She came from a good connection to some other connections.
Yeah. So,
or the Bobby Marshall podcast. We'll throw Bobby out with the bathwater here.
Yeah. So really, it's just, meeting those connections and realizing that there is things outside of firearms, alcohol, and depression. So, and that's where Valor kind of spun up as a way to bring others into that space. Get them out of their own head, get them out of their own, out of their basement, out of the alcohol, and let's do something fun with them. So that's kind of where it's at.
You hunted before you were in the military?
I did.
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and hunting, and then what you enjoyed and what you wanted to pursue.
Sure. So age 11, I was going through in Colorado. At that time, I could go through the Hunter's Ed program ahead of time. I couldn't hunt until age 12. So I went through a Colorado Hunter's Ed program. By age 12, Dad put a 30-06 in my hand. We went over to Craig. We dropped a pronghorn, and I was hooked right then. Brought it home, butchered it all out, got it in the freezer, and I've been hunting ever since. So now I chase deer, elk, bear, pronghorn, turkey, grouse, geese, and ducks, most of those with a bow.
Mostly in Colorado, or do you go other places?
I've gone other places. We went on a javelina hunt in New Mexico 3 years ago. Was not successful, but it was fun country, very pokey country to go play around in. Gone to Texas a number of times for hogs. That's been fun. They taste good. They fill the freezer well. Wyoming for the whitetail, but predominantly it's Colorado. When I was in the military, I hunted in Kentucky and Tennessee for a few years, then back to Colorado.
How'd you get into the tank mechanic side of things? Short straw, or you just said, I could turn a wrench?
So I can turn a wrench. That was easy. When I did my ASVAB prior to the military, they said, you qualify for any mechanic's job in the military, across any branch. Cool. At the time, I had a fear of heights, which means I wasn't going in the Air Force, and I didn't want to be a helicopter mechanic.
So you're not going to be a parachute jumper or anything.
Right. I'm from Colorado. You don't go in the water here. Mm-hmm. So that also created a fear of water, so that eliminated Navy and Marines. Coast Guard. Well, that just left the Army. And the recruiter was smart, and he looked at a 17-year-old kid and said, how about you work on something that's big and blow shit up? That was the key word right there. Let's do it. Uh-huh. And so tank mechanic, M1 Abrams, Bradleys, 113s, Hemmets, Hetz, 2 snaps, 5 tons, Humvees.
Sounds a little bit more complicated than running a little archery thing going around in circles.
It's 72 tons of tracked steel, with a 115 millimeter gun. Uh-huh. It's a monster.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about precision. You just turn around and aim and shoot.
Yeah, as long as you pull the trigger, it goes where it needs to go.
Yeah. And so you started that right off the bat?
Yeah.
Really? And I don't know anything about that.
6 months worth of training. That got me everything I needed to get started. When you get to the unit, that's the rest of the training that fills in any gaps. Then they start sending you out to the field, and things break, and you figure out how to fix them. And grab a hold of oxyacetylene or plasma or welder or whatever you need to do to get back up and running.
Were you overseas?
Nope. At the time, it was 99 to 01 or 94 to 01 when I was served. So I got right after Gulf War, right before it all broke loose.
Okay. So when you're working on a tank, is there any similarities to working on anything else that you could operate? I mean, it's not like a riding lawnmower.
Wiring is the only thing. Yeah. Right? It's 24 volt versus 12 volt. Your car is 12 volt system. That's the only similarity. Everything else is just bigger and heavier.
Yeah.
Tank runs on a 1,500 horsepower turbine engine, so jet engine. So that doesn't match up with your car or your Jeep at all.
Especially if you're driving a Tesla or anything. So, which I'm sure that you do.
No. No, ran Jeeps for years, and now I run a Tacoma.
No similarities between the mechanic side. I mean, you know that this turns that and this makes this go, but outside of that,
righty tighty, lefty loosey.
Yeah.
That's past that. That's the extent.
What was your favorite piece of equipment to work on?
The tanks were fun just because they were monsters, right? And they'll go anywhere. 45 miles an hour, 72 tons. It's a beast.
And you get to drive them, test drive them when you're yeah. To make
I even
sure
got to shoot it.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I went to a couple gunneries where they had extra rounds and mechanics. Do you guys want to play? Hell yeah, let's go.
So is a tank mechanic actually in control of the entire tank operation aspect from the firing mechanisms or is it different teams that do different parts of the tank?
So when I served, they had a hull mechanic, which was chassis, suspension, engine, and hydraulics, and then they had a turret mechanic, which was fire control. As I was transitioning out, they switched it to an all-in-one mechanic, so it was that mechanic covered the entire system of the tank.
So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a
So
it's
you
a
ought to be
skill
able to
set.
adjust your own bow and make your own arrows. if
I
you
do,
want to.
as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
do.
you're probably fully qualified to get other people interested in archery hunting or archery shooting.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
If I can fix that thing, I can probably walk you into slinging an arrow
Yeah.
in 20 minutes.
And discipline-wise,
That's a question mark.
yeah, discipline-wise, does archery have any similarities to what you did as a profession in the military?
Habits, right? It's for the military. It's form. It's habits. It's rituals is not the right word, but it's that constant
Consistency.
Archery is the same thing. If you don't have that consistency, if you don't have those same habits, if your form is wrong, it's going to show when that arrow leaves
So
the
that's
bow.
a repetitive motion.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have the same anchor point, if you're off by an eighth of an inch or a beard hair, it's gonna show in where that arrow goes.
Does that come through natural learning or just a cycle of attrition where you do redundancy?
It's that shot worked. What did I do that shot? Let's try that again. Oh, it worked a second time. All right, it worked a third time. Oh, that was wrong because I did whatever it was that I did.
What similarities do you see in military life versus what you're dealing with in today's life?
Ooh, not a whole lot.
Because you're just willy-nilly now or what?
Well, because I can do my own thing and I don't have to answer to anybody but me. So that makes life easier.
Yeah. There's a structure of authority.
Very much
And-
so.
and,
That is the chain of command.
Yeah. And so, but when you got into that, did you have that structure as a kid?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in a military family, so I
it was
already had that.
Easily transition into that.
Yeah, for the most part.
And in the military, did they give you the opportunity to kind of think on your own and think outside the box?
Sometimes you have to, especially when you're working on a tank and you've got a critical down, or hey, this tank has to be up and running and functional in 20 minutes in order to accomplish its mission. Figure out how to fix it time now. And so, okay, well, we're going to get creative, and this normally runs this way. Let's run a jumper wire from here to here. Oh, look, that worked. You're back to functional. We'll fix that when we get out of the field.
And that transitioned into your private life to
It did.
where the adaptability.
How do
being
I
able to
overcome something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when you mentioned some of the experiences you had about from being in the military, being disabled in the military, injured in the military, transitioning into back to civilian life, what challenges did you see besides what you previously explained for you to be able to turn around and kind of insert
Everything.
yourself?
Everything.
Yeah.
So in the military, you're taught when to get up, how to dress, how to act, how to perform, how to do your job, and how to do anything your day-to-day life lives around. Civilian life, it's not the same. You don't have anybody telling you what to do, where to do it, or how to do it. So that was a transition point. That was a little bit of a struggle bus. And again, going through depression, anxiety, stress, and PTSD all at the same time, yeah, that was rough. Like I said, alcohol, firearms, not a good combination. So let's move away from that. Moving in towards more positive thinking and figuring out how to overcome whatever that struggle is in a better way. For me, it was archery. That's where Valor steps in. I want to bring more people to that same plate. Thankfully, there's a lot more programs and transition programs now that are available. Most of those have booths at the Valor events, so they can share what they've got and how they can help connect the military and veterans. So there are more resources now than when I got out, which is good. Like to see it continue that same path.
You mentioned, I'm jumping around here a little bit, so apologize. booths at the Valor events. What sort of other vendors do you get there or interested parties yet?
So for the Fort Carson events, I can only have veteran service organizations or veteran-owned businesses as part of the booths.
Okay.
For my other events, I can do whatever I want. But being as those events are on the base and controlled by base command, that was one of the requirements, is veteran-owned. So cool, happy to work with that. For the rest of my events, yep, let's bring them out. Let's get people stacked up, because I'm not creating a vendor village. So if you think about Outdoorsman Days where you had all your vendors stacked together, I'm actually putting a vendor booth directly on a shooting stake on the event, on the course. So you've got direct interaction with each of the participants that comes through. A little bit different mindset.
Yeah, but it seems like it's meant to flow even enough.
It is.
To where you get the best bang for the buck of the return on investment for individual engagement.
Correct. Yep.
Do you have many women involved?
We had several that came through. All had a fun. One young lady on Saturday, but at the end of the event, she said, for a flat, level ground course, I was expecting it to be fairly easy. She goes, but this was harder than Colorado TAC. So I'll take that as a compliment all day long.
Exactly. Now, you're going to be doing one in Bailey here.
Correct.
Is that at the American Bowman?
American Bowman,
yeah. Yep. That's May 17th. And then the Fort Carson one back in the same location on June 14th?
Back in the same location. We're just going to rearrange some things.
And that's off of what
I-25.
gate? Yeah, that's over by the shooting complex.
Shooting complex, right off Gate 20. Yep.
Okay. And then those both are one-day events.
Correct. All of them are one, except for your event, it's all one-day events.
And then where do you need to register?
So valorarcherychallenge.com.
Okay. And the cost is what?
$40 for normal registration, $15 additional for rental gear.
And we'll share all that stuff on what we're doing for the podcast as well.
So if you compare that to like a total archery challenge that's $75 this year, or a Western Hunt Fest that's $100 this year, Beast Mode Archery, which is $65 this year, $40 is pretty reasonable. For those that are military connected, you're getting a challenge coin along with that. So whether you're active military or veteran, you're getting a challenge coin as part of the registration fees.
And as far as the Bailey one, you're looking for vendors up there as well?
I am.
Yeah?
You want to come up?
We very well might.
Come on up. I'll have you.
No, actually, I can't do that day because I'll be doing the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society banquet. And see, there's too many things going on.
You act like you're a busy man.
Well, when they're auctioning a blanket and we have to turn around and get a booth and we're doing, then you know how that is.
Yeah.
I might send somebody up there to turn around and do something, though.
That's fine.
And see if we can get...
There'll probably be... Never mind. I won't say that.
There'll probably be people there. August 8th and 9th, you'll be in Florence at the Outdoorsman Day event.
And then July 12th is the other event, and that's up in Greeley.
And that one's not on here.
Correct.
Okay. Where's that one at?
Greeley Archers.
Okay.
So they've had an event, I think they call it Freedom Fest or Freedom Shoot for the last number of years up there. They can't get a hold of they couldn't get a hold of their existing vendor for that, to set up the course for them. And they reached out to me and said, I'd be happy to set it up. So we're going to go up there, set up an event for Northern Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Kansas veterans and let them come out and play.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you try to, maybe you're not there yet, but are you trying to get youth involved, or is youth a component of?
Youth is a component of. When you look at, if you look at the military family, military connected family, whether it's active or veteran, doesn't matter. It is a family piece of it, right? The veteran, the military individual goes on deployments. They've been overseas. But they still typically come back to a family, and they all need to be a part of it. Archery is a great family-related thing because it doesn't matter how strong or how weak you are. Everybody can pull a bowstring back and send an arrow.
Right.
Might not be accurate, but you can at least get out there.
Exactly.
And that's the key piece of this, is building that community around it.
Where do you see gaps in this archery community that need to be filled besides what you're trying to do yourself?
So TAC does a great job for the extreme shooters. Beast Mode and Western Hunt Fest do a great job for building that hunting prep workout program type scenario. There's a couple other shoots that are really just for fun shoots. I think what's really missing is that transition from point shooters to hunting shooters. So for point shooters, you're really just looking for those ring shots, the 12, 10, 8, and 5. For hunters, you're looking for the different angled shots of how can I get an arrow in between that shoulder blade and that rib bone in order to hit all the vitals that I need, go out the other side, and that animal drops fast.
And not hit a tree branch.
And there is that too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where that missing translation piece is in there. And that's part of why Archery in Motion stepped in, was to bring that moving target into that scenario, so you actually understood what that moving target, what that arrow flew like to the moving target, so that you could have a more ethical hunt. So you can drop that animal a little bit faster. So you actually understand where the vitals are inside of that animal.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, and I think I want to make sure people understand that just because you have a moving target doesn't mean you're advocating for shooting a moving target when it comes to hunting. It just makes you prepare yourself in case you have to.
Right.
But the optimum thing would be able to turn around and do it standing still, quartering away or quartering to you, or whatever the optimum shot would be.
That would be great if you can do it. But last I checked, hogs never stop moving.
No.
Turkey never stop moving.
No.
Mule deer, they'll stand still long enough to look at you and go, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But elk, especially in Colorado the last 3 or 4 years, if you throw a cow call to try and stop them, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to stop with the vitals behind a tree, or they're going to take off running, and you're not going to get that shot. Like you said, practice, prepare, build that skill set so that you can take that shot on the moving target. Understand that when that elk takes a step, it is 3 foot worth of distance. Well, this target's moving at 3 miles an hour. It's kind of cooking along, and it'll at least prepare you to make that shot and understand what that looks like. Last year, we had a lot of folks humbled by the moving target just because they figured, well, I can just shoot it, and where that arrow hits is where the arrow hits. Well, most of the time they were shooting way far forward because they were trying to lead it like they were as a rifle hunter. Not necessarily what you need to do. Get into the straight line mover is one thing because it's about 2.1, 2.2 miles an hour. It's slow enough pace that it's a turkey walking along the ground. That's still moving, but you don't need to lead it that much. At distance, you probably do, but this helps you understand or get a better understanding of your bow, your ability to shoot that moving target, and what you're capable of accomplishing.
And it might humble somebody to the point where they go, well, I don't want to shoot anything moving. That's
the key part.
Yeah, exactly. To where and I think looking at it from an archery perspective, a hunting perspective, is that archery success rates are about the same as what rifle hunting success rates are,
lower.
which are they're all around 9% straight across the board.
Okay,
and so not saying one is better than the other, but people often take shots that they're not comfortable with a rifle, a muzzleloader, or a bow.
Correct.
Because they don't know their limitations. More often than not, they don't know the limitations of the weapon of choice.
Right. They're rifle hunters. Don't take this the wrong way for those rifle hunters. I was a rifle hunter for decades, so I can say this. But you take your rifle out to the gun range 2, maybe 3 times a year. You put maybe 10 rounds through it each time, but you're, again, shooting from a bench at a stationary target at a piece of paper. Doesn't even look like an animal. So when you get that animal that walks in front of you at 300 yards, you got that heart rate panicking. You got you're already out of breath because you're hiked up the mountain. You're already out of your element because you've got that elevation change. You've never taken that shot from a standing shot or from even a prone shot because you've only taken it from the bench at the gun range. There's already new challenges integrated into that shot. At least with 3D archery, we are practicing on those 3D foam animals that are replicas of what it looks like out in the woods. So if I put a mule deer up there and I shoot at that mule deer all summer long on a moving target, I've already taken that shot 2,000 times, and I understand that when the mule deer steps out in front of me, it's just that moving target. Let it fly.
If you're going to give a piece of advice to somebody who's actually trying to perfect their capabilities and their success rate on not just harvest, but actually doing what they should practice at different angles and different positions and through different. It's funny. And for anybody that thinks this is critical assessment, it probably is. But when you go to an archery range, it's open targets. Between you and there's nothing. No. I guided archery hunters for about 30 years. And when they would come in to camp, we would always make sure that when they flew in that everything was adjusted and sighted in just like you do with a rifle. But I would always turn around and take their target that they brought with them and put it down to the willows or put it down through the oak brush
scrub.
or whatever.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I need to move it over here. And I'm like, no, the elk is not going to be in the open.
Right.
The deer's not going to be in the open. And that caused them to turn around and look at what was between them and the target as opposed to just looking at the target.
Understand where that branch is that's halfway.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because it's not flying on a straight line. It's actually got an arc to it.
Correct.
And I think that not that I'm an archery coach by any means, but I trained more guys in the field by happenstance because I saw what other people did wrong,
Yep.
and I was just trying to correct it, and it actually provided significant benefit. Is there something that somebody can do themselves besides what I just explained to prepare for scenarios in the field that maybe are unexpected?
So A, come to Valor Archery Challenges because we got a whole bunch of different shot scenarios that you're going to work through. B, take your practice shots from sitting flat on your butt. Take them from a knee. Take them from both knees. Make sure you're not just standing comfortable and everything's relaxed because that's not a hunting scenario. Put your pack on. Do 50 jumping jacks before you take a shot.
Get your blood pumping.
Yeah, do 10 burpees before you take a shot. Get that heart rate up. Get that the lungs are on fire. Get those legs, feeling it before you try to take that shot because that's going to be more realistic. I've dropped, in 37 years, I probably dropped 8 animals while standing. Most everything else is either sitting or flat on my ass.
I mean, look how many guys practice out of a tree stand or
Yep.
an elevated spot to where
Few
they're
and far
shooting at
between.
different angles.
Few and far between.
Yeah. They don't practice that way typically.
Correct.
They turn around and practice on flat ground, then climb up in a tree,
Yep.
and then they're shooting down at a 30 or 45 degree angle.
Or more.
Yeah. At
This,
30 or 40 yards.
right. This past weekend, we had an armadillo that was 8 feet out from me to Bobby, and it was 8 feet straight down. That's a difficult
A target
shot.
armadillo.
A target armadillo.
Yeah. That's I want to emphasize it.
Yeah. So, but that's a hard angle to shoot at
Yes.
if you're not practiced for it. So, like I said, we've built some really fantastic scenarios to prepare you if you're a bow hunter. We've built some fun scenarios if it's just you come out to do the fun shoot. We're going to challenge you. It's going to make you work for it.
Mm-hmm. If you want to support a company that supported the efforts to defeat Proposition 127, then you need to support Davis Tent. Davis Tent has provided quality canvas goods for outdoorsmen for the last 50-plus years. For more information, go to davistent.com. If you want to support another business that was instrumental in helping us defeat Proposition 127, check out Salida Gun Shop. Salida Gun Shop in Salida, Colorado provides quality products, expertise, and knowledge from individuals that actually do what they sell. Go to salidagunshop.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com. What reward do people see when they come to an event like this and they maybe didn't live up to their own expectations? Do they get better? Do they get frustrated and want to throw it across the creek?
No, because for those that said, that one was really a struggle bus, and I asked, what happened? Where did it go? Where did it go wrong? Well, I've never done a draw and hold and shot at a target. Okay, well, that's something to practice on. Mm-hmm. Well, I've never shot at that steep of an angle downhill. Okay, well, that's something to practice on. It gives them an opportunity to think about, well, just going into the indoor gun range and shooting at 20 yards on a piece of paper isn't necessarily going to get me what I need to get in order to go to the woods. So it really gives them an opportunity to think about, maybe do a little self-reflection and think about how they can improve their own process.
Not being an archer myself to the extent that what I would like to be, what do you recommend for practice times?
It depends on how deep down that rabbit hole you want to go. I typically shoot 4 to 5 days a week. I'll put 100 rounds per session before I call it a day.
So you're really in depth.
Yeah, I burn through 2 bowstrings a year.
But for the average person that's got to get up in the morning, take care of the kids, feed the dogs, take care of the
Right.
horses, go to school, then turn around and come back. And
if you can hit it 2 days a week, you're good to go.
And to where, do you recommend doing 5 to 10 arrows at a whack, or you recommend as many as you possibly can?
As many as you can and still hold good form and
Okay.
still make a good session.
Because you see all the videos on Instagram or Facebook or whatever else, and these guys out there shooting or these gals out there shooting. It doesn't. It shows you the 3 that they shot,
Right?
Not the 37 that you don't see.
Correct. They're only posting the good videos of where the arrows actually hit, not the big circle around. Where
I see guys shoot out of their kitchen window and stuff, to the target, and I'm thinking, well, the first time you shot the bird feeder or something.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a video maybe 4 months ago that I saw where a guy was trying to shoot through his Ford Explorer through the windows and ended up clipping just the frame of the Ford Explorer, pinned the back door into the body with the arrow. Yeah, it's a cool shot. Probably shouldn't take it.
Yeah, if it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do what's real.
Yeah. Your vision of this is becoming what? I mean, you want to do these events and get to a point where it's too big, or you see that it gets to the point to where that you just want to keep making it bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger?
You know, my goal I really do want to help the military and veteran community with archery as therapy. While Colorado is my starting point, I would love to be able to continue to grow it across the country if I can. We'll see how well that plays out and what I can control. But for right now, Front Range will give me a pretty healthy start for 2025, and then 2026 is just where do I go from here?
What do you need help with?
Right now, finding vendors.
Sponsors?
Sponsors I've reached out to, and like I said, I think those will continue to grow, especially as they see the social media presence is coming back. For Saturday, I shot a video with each of the prize winners. Athlon again. One gentleman that won the Athlon binoculars, he was running a set of $30 Walmart Simmons binoculars and has been hunting with those for the last 5 years. He won the Athlon 10x40 binoculars. And he said, this is a life changer. So, you know, I've got those videos, I've got those customer testimonials, those winner testimonials. I'm going to post those across social media. And I think that those sponsors will start to come in a bigger, better version with, hey, that was good. They're helping to support us. We're supporting them. Let's make it a partnership.
What's your hunting plans for 25?
Depending on what the draw comes back with here at the end of next month.
You're optimistic.
I try to be. Like I said, I'm a hardcore hunter. I've been that for a number of years. About 10 years ago, I actually built a spreadsheet that said, here's my draw plans for the next 5 years going forward. Here's where I've hunted in the past, the grid coordinates, where I was successful, where I was able to drop something, where I saw stuff before Onyx really became a big thing. I've now incorporated Onyx into that spreadsheet. Now it's just a monster spreadsheet. But I've already got my hunt plans for the next 5 years, again, being optimistic. But this year, depending on what the draw cycle comes back with, either sex for deer, elk, bear, pronghorn, and turkey over on the western side of the state. So next week we go over for spring turkey just to see how we do. And then wait for the draw to come back, and let's see if we can put something else in the freezer. This will be year number 7 for putting in a moose tag, so fingers crossed. We'll see if I can bring one of those down.
Any out-of-state plans, really?
No.
No.
Not for the cost.
Yeah. You don't want to go to Utah and spend $3,000 on the elk tag now?
No. Not when I can buy a Colorado tag or 2 Colorado tags for $65 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as we continue to have what we have. I mean,
for as long as I can. Yep.
Yeah. So I've already asked you about the Valor Archery deal. We talked about the events for 2025. How are you connecting archery as therapy for military veterans in your own mind?
For me, my therapy is when I draw that string back, all the voices, all the noises, even the ones in my head go quiet. Because all I can do is focus on the release, the peep, the sight, the pin, and the target. When I let that arrow fly, a little bit of stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD go out with that arrow. I want to bring that same mindset, that same thought process to the rest of the military and veteran community so that they understand that there are alternatives besides things that can play out badly for you.
I could see where a lot of these events have the opportunity to cross-pollinate.
Oh, very much so.
People are looking for maybe not events every weekend, but with as many events that are going on at different levels, they have an opportunity to be able to engage at different levels. I also see where they can incorporate their families or their friends or their coworkers. And, you know, as we fought through Proposition 127 and seeing the sportsman community come out in full force, I saw a variety of different sectors of our community, from the houndsmen to the bow hunters to the elk hunters and turkey hunters, and everybody came out at different levels. But there was a lot of cross-pollination, and I want to emphasize the fact that sportsmen are sportsmen, and they're not necessarily bow hunters. You mentioned rifle hunting and bow hunting.
Yep.
The sheep hunters don't just hunt sheep; they hunt elk and they hunt waterfowl, and some of them bow hunt. Everybody has a particular avocation that they'd like to pursue that's more of a favorite to them.
Yep.
But as long as we can keep this sportsman mentality together, I think that we have we have a lot of things in front of us that we could probably take advantage of on being able to try to figure out a way to continue to save the hunt. But acknowledging people's interest in the outdoors is different than getting them to engage in the outdoors.
Right.
What do you see as a challenge to get people across the finish line to say, I want to be able to support people that don't hunt but actually shoot, or I want to be able to support people that hunt that are just coming from the shooting side that now want to hunt? How do you cross-pollinate that stuff to a point to where it's beneficial for the overall goal and the cause of sustainable hunting and wildlife management?
So I think there's two folds to that. First side is that it has to be a reasonable price tag to get for entrance, right? And when you look at the price tag for a bow, they're not exactly cheap. And if you've never shot a bow before, you're unsure if you want to get into bow hunting, you're unsure if you even want to try archery. If you just go to a sporting goods store and say, can I try a bow? Yeah, but you're shooting at 10 yards, and they're going to give you 3 arrows, and that's it. The difference with Valor is we have the rental gear. We're going to let you grab a bow for $15 and go out and shoot 40-plus targets. That's either going to bring you into the fold or it's going to deter you. More than likely, it's going to bring you into the fold because what we're building is addictive, and that's what it's designed to be. If that transitions into hunters, into that fold of how do we use more people to save the hunt, I'm not sure that it may or may not get there, but it'll at least get them thinking about in those same lines about, well, how else can I get involved? On the other side of it, if you're already a sportsman, you're already into hunting, you should already be in this game, which means you should already be working to continue the fight. You should already be contributing. You should already be having your voice heard and getting your voice out there so that don't just think that Sam and Dan have this under control. We're fighting it, but we're not winning. We need everybody to jump in.
Do you see that there's an interest from the participants that you've incorporated into this to be able to engage outside of their particular wheelhouse?
I think so. Pat myself on the back here. The moving target, it's the only one across the country to this stage, right? If you're already a fun shooter, a target shooter, a point shooter, that may help spur a level of interest in maybe transitioning over to that bow hunting space or into the sportsman space. Because I think that's addictive enough to you're going to want to go, well, I want to do more of these events. And some of these events, Dan's going to be there and Dan's going to talk to them, and that'll help push them a little farther. Or, it's whatever that next group is going to help bring them to that next stage. So I think overall it will get there. We just got to continue to build that cycle. And that's why I'm trying to do one a month to help keep that level of interest engagement.
Are you planning on doing anything in the winter months, or is this just a middle of the year type deal?
My wife wants to do some level of travel through the winters, and I told her that that's probably going to be the easiest point in time to do that. But that said, if I have a venue that says we have an indoor space that you can utilize that we can rent out to you, I'll absolutely put together an event for November, December, and January.
It'd be kind of cool for somebody to do something in the snow one time, because it's not like we all hunt in anything when the aspens are all yellow and it's warm outside. And
right.
Yeah.
I was just in the snow last week and it was cold.
Yeah, yeah, but you got to get more people involved to actually,
that's right.
to actually benefit off of that.
That's right.
That's an interesting thing too, is not knowing enough about archery, and maybe some of the viewers or listeners on this. Is it that big of a difference to shoot consistently in the cold and the wet with the equipment than it is when it's just perfect conditions?
Yes.
Why?
So your string will tighten up in the winter, in the cold weather, and it can create a little bit more noise. It can also create how the arrows bend and flex in flight. It'll also change how the string reacts when you let go of it from your release. So yes, it absolutely makes a difference. When you add water, now you're adding a layer of resistance into that string to slow it down, so your arrow will fly a little slower. If it's actively raining, your arrow is going to continuously get knocked down and drop a little bit because of the raindrops. Heavy winds, you're also going to see a little bit more drift in what that arrow does. You can accommodate by leaning the bow into the wind, but that's a whole different conversation. So,
what about elevation?
Elevation changes are usually fairly straightforward as long as they're not terribly steep.
So if you're like 12,000 foot, but you've been shooting at 3,500 feet.
Oh, that's a whole different ballgame.
That's a
it's
different
not
deal.
going to fly right.
It's completely different.
Yeah, if you're live at sea level, you've practiced at sea level, and you're coming up to Colorado to hunt, you need to recite everything before you ever head to the mountain. So hit an archery range along the front range before you ever head up.
And I think that's one of the biggest things too. Is even target shooters, rifle shooters themselves.
Very much so.
The difference between sighting something in for barometric pressure and elevation, humidity, and so forth at 1,200 feet versus 9,600 feet.
It's a whole different ballgame.
That's a big different deal. It might be in close proximity.
No.
Depending on, well, I mean, in the sense to where it might be still on paper.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're talking on paper.
Exactly. But, but
12-inch difference.
It's not like it should be a 3 to a 4 foot difference.
No.
But it's different enough that you need to practice and you need to be. So how somebody prepare for that?
Come up a day or two ahead of time. If you're coming from a lower elevation, let's call it 3,000 feet or less, and you're coming to Colorado to hunt, you should acclimate to the altitude a day or two ahead of your hunt anyway. Mm-hmm. Drink plenty of water. Altitude sickness is a thing. It hurts. It sucks. You don't want to play that game because it will ruin a hunt for you and your buddies. So come to Colorado, come to the elevation a day or two ahead of time, drink plenty of water, start to get acclimated, get your bow, your rifle, your muzzleloader, whatever the case is, sighted in, dialed in for this altitude, then go to the hills and see how you do.
What do you see happened over last year with Prop 127 in the sportsman community and how they came together and how we continually keep them together? Because you're talking about institutional knowledge versus avocational freedom. People want to turn around and go out and participate, but they don't have to do it from a hunting perspective.
Right.
How do we keep the momentum going, not just on 127 type material, but when people are enthused about saving the hunt or saving the opportunity or the Second Amendment or whatever? What's it take to be able to get people engaged, enthused enough to be able to continue to participate so they can be part of the solution and not part of the problem?
I'd go one step further. Not necessarily make it about them, make it about their kids, right? So if hunting has been in your family for generations and you don't want your little ones to lose their ability to hunt by the time they get old enough to hunt, start being engaged in the conversation now. Stay engaged in the conversation until they're old enough. When they're old enough, continue to be engaged in the conversation so you can pass that legacy down to kids, grandkids, great-grandkids so that the hunt stays here. Because if we lose it, we're never going to get it back.
And I've said that many, many times. What about archery in schools?
I'd love to see it.
Used to have it. I think some do still, but not very much.
Not very many. I'd love to see it come back. I don't know that it's going to happen. I think there's a place for it. I think there's a hesitation around it, but I'd rather see archery in schools over firearms in schools. We already see enough of those for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So.
And as I was a kid, I mean, hell, we took firearms in schools and never had any problems.
There were days where I had rifles in the back of my truck, and I'd go hunting in the afternoon.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling Bobby the last time I did a podcast with him on the mountainside that, I mean, I built guns and cannons in school and shop. I mean, that was,
awesome.
And we fired them on the football field. Any of the muzzleloaders, any of the cannons. It's a different time.
Correct.
But it doesn't mean... In my mind, it doesn't mean that it needs to be bastardized because
There's
of
a
the
time and place for
avocational
it.
pursuit. Yeah. I know times are different, but conservation is still there. Hunting and fishing is still there. And I think indoctrinating people into that opportunity, if they want to, is part of an opportunity to do so.
But keep the word right there is opportunity. Keep the opportunity.
Exactly. I went to Cheyenne Mountain High School in Colorado Springs, and started a trap club, a trap and skeet club. And there was only 12 or 14 of us. And we started a rodeo club, and there was about 12 or 14 of us. It lasted for about 10 years after I got out of school. And then, teachers die. There's no more student interest. There's no more anybody that's educated enough to be able to push it. There's still some schools around the country that have that, and they're more rural schools than they are urban. But some of that is, not too long ago we had the hunter education classes in school bill that was signed by Governor Polis at the Sports Day at the Capitol. Was that 22 or 23?
Yeah, he hasn't been there since then.
No, because there wasn't any value to him to turn around and try to do it and cross the finish line. When that got in, that wasn't a mandate. It was giving the opportunity to. And I don't think that we actually garnered any additional support beyond what we had already accomplished.
Right.
But it'd be nice if that was available, and then there was an opportunity for a full completion of the course with the Firearms Incorporation outside of the school setting. You did all the school setting for the hunter education, but you had to turn around and get certified outside with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Remarkably enough, but 3 years later, Colorado Parks and Wildlife is now going to turn around and under Senate Bill 003 now be the gun registry and the gun training side for everybody that wants to have a detachable magazine gun. Went from schools, hunter education in schools, to this, if you call it a gun registry or call it a gun permission slip or whatever the hell it might be. That's not where we want to go when it comes to anything that's firearm or archery related as far as hunting and pursuit of wildlife management objectives.
I would agree.
Do you see the military institutions themselves, to the best of your knowledge, providing anything to the youth about wildlife management, sustainable wildlife management?
None whatsoever.
No.
Military is focused around the active military service members themselves. The families are optional, is a word for it.
Mm-hmm.
So no, they're not trying to provide any level of training, just a level of support to them. If the service member is overseas deployed, they'll provide a level of support to the family to make sure they have everything they need to sustain and survive. But that's really the extent of where they go.
So how are you getting engagement yourself on the military side?
My last duty station was here at Fort Carson, Colorado. I had to go stand in front of a 2-star general to say, my name is Sam Westfall. I'm a 4th ID 168 Fort Carson, Colorado Army alumni, veteran, service-disabled veteran from right here. I would like to do this thing. Here's how it benefits the military and the veteran community that's local. Here's how it benefits Fort Carson and the community around it. Here's how it helps the veteran service organizations, hunting, fishing, outdoor organizations, all come together as a community to support the military and the veterans. Are you willing to have that conversation? And after a 30-minute long presentation, he said, yep, let's do it.
Fort Carson's still got the outdoor rec branch.
They do.
And they still got a hunting branch.
They do.
But it's part of that on Fort Carson itself,
Yep.
Fort Carson and Pinyon Canyon.
Correct.
They work in conjunction with Colorado Parks and Wildlife as far as license acquisition and distribution and the utilization of those tags on those two military installations. I've hunted both of those.
Yep.
I know it's changed significantly over the course of the last 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 years.
Right.
Is there a way that you think that you can help bridge some of the gaps on outdoor education versus hunter education when it comes into that, because those two opportunities are still available on both of the posts?
And I think so. My goal for probably the June event is to have CPW have a booth at the event as well, similar to what you had at the Outdoorsman Days last year, where they were, hey, let's talk about conservation, let's talk about hunting, fishing licenses, and by the way, here's this little archery range over here if you want to play. We'll probably eliminate the whole archery range part because I'll run that side. But at least give them the opportunity to help step in and help build that pseudo relationship with those folks that are constantly flowing in and out of Fort Carson. And we go from there.
Do you need help from CPW at all?
If you've got a connection, I would be happy to take you up on it.
I could make an introduction to that probably right after this podcast.
Let's see.
Do you need help from any of the other conservation organizations that are out there? Participation, sponsorship, volunteerism.
I never turn down volunteers. Sponsorship would be great, but it's not. I'm not overly concerned about that right this second. Got everything I need to put together successful events. That was my starting point. Now I'll run with it from here.
So I'm just thinking about and trying to help you connect the dots on some of the things. And so if there's any of the other groups that are out there, whether it's Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society or Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation or Colorado Bowhunters Association or National Wild Turkey Federation, I'm the vice chair of the largest coalition in the state of Colorado, the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Project. And we meet every Friday. And if I had you come on for a 10-minute introduction and just say, this is what we're doing, this is what we'd like to turn around and get people involved in, maybe that would be something we could turn around and try to structure to get.
We could absolutely do that.
Whether it was funding or just volunteer help or just acknowledgement, maybe other people would want to turn around and come participate.
Yep.
So I'll try to set that up and see what we can do on it.
I'd hug you, but it would be awkward.
Yeah, you know you won't. So, we were not going that direction. So, Bobby tried that before, and it didn't go down very, very well. So where do you want to be 2 to 5 years from now with this?
So for Archery in Motion side, I'd love for somebody else to buy me out, and that way I can spend the rest of my life hunting. Past that,
optimistic, aren't you?
Big dreams. Big dreams.
I'm waiting for applications to come back.
That's right. Big dreams. So that's kind of where that one sits. As far as Valor goes, like I said, my goal really is to bring in front range for 2025. 2026, we start to grow it, probably Western states, and then we'll go from there.
Last year, you participated in a few different events in conjunction with what you were already trying to do on the other stuff. Are you participating in anybody else's event this year that's not your event?
No.
Besides Outdoorsman Days, which is your part of.
That's just because I like you, Dan. That's
the reason. There goes back to the hugging part again. So.
Just to make it weird.
Yeah.
Past that, I'm running my own just because now I can do what I want to do, how I want to do it, where and when, and kind of at my pace.
Give us your website.
ValorArcheryChallenge.com is for the 3D archery event. And providing this doesn't pull up another audio soundtrack again, Archery N Motion, the letter N, motion.com for the moving target. And that video right there is from the Outdoorsman Days.
Is that a Bigfoot?
It is a Bigfoot.
Or a hedgehog?
No, it's a little 48-inch Bigfoot.
And that one there was just how long of a track?
That's 10 foot running on a solar panel. But we had that out at 78 yards.
Uh-huh.
And that video down below, that's the monster mover rolling around with a couple trees in the way.
It's got a bighorn sheep on it.
Bighorn sheep.
And you can see there's a frustration in somebody's shot there.
Have you heard the phrase Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what it means?
No.
It means that there's one arrow that already hit the center mass of a target, and another arrow, second arrow, hits the back of that first arrow and penetrates it. Mm-hmm. Like a Robin Hood in the myth.
Okay. Yeah.
I have 4 Robin Hoods on moving targets. So that reaction was my 4th Robin Hood.
Really?
Yep. Because we all heard it because you hear that loud crack as soon as it shatters that arrow.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
The first time I ever shot a bow, I did it.
Yeah?
And
With a Robin Hood?
I felt so bad because I was at a Bass Pro Shop, and I was like, oh, my God, I'm sorry I broke your arrow. He's like, nope, that's one of the coolest things. You take that home.
Yep. Yeah, the first couple is a prize. After that, it just gets stupid expensive.
Just costs you arrows.
Right.
Yeah, you're not trying to do it after 4.
No. I'm not getting back.
But I've got probably 12 Robin Hoods on my wall in my garage, 5 of which are on moving targets.
Really?
And I got 3 of which are on video.
That's pretty impressive. Very much so. Well,
like I said, I can take you from never touching a bow and have you slinging arrows in 20 minutes.
Do you have any preference of? I mean, we can get into brands of this and brands of that, and it's like Ford, Chevys, and Dodges, and Toyotas, and everything else. Somebody's going to like something different.
Sure.
If somebody's trying to get into this, what's the best way to figure out what to do where to go?
You could not ask a better question. So, the best way to get into archery is the following. Find your nearest 3 archery shops, whether it's a Shields, a Bass Pro, a Sportsman's Warehouse, a local mom and pop shop. Doesn't matter. Go to 3 of them. Understand what your end goal is for archery, whether that's I want to shoot at paper on a wall for the rest of my life. I want to be able to go to shoot at Vegas. I want to go shoot 3D targets. I want to be able to bow hunt. In one of those scenarios or all of those scenarios. But know what your end goal is. Go to those 3 shops and say, please set up 1 or 2 bows, maybe even 3 bows for me to match up with what my requirements are. Each shop is going to carry a different manufacturer or a couple different manufacturers. They're going to set up a couple different models for you to in your draw length, draw weight, and draw setup. And you're going to go, so Hoyt, Matthews, Black Diamond, PSE, doesn't matter. But now you've touched probably 5 or 6 bows by going to those 3 shops. Now you can figure out the one that matches up with your price tag and which one is the most comfortable for you to shoot. Then it's not a brand preference. It's not Sam saying you should go after X brand. This is more about what's comfortable to shoot for you in your price point.
All bows are not created equal.
Absolutely
obviously.
Not.
So if somebody has an interested party in their family that wants to go out and think about doing this, is it practical to think that it's going to cost them $1,000, and once they figure out they don't like it, they're stuck with $1,000 worth of stuff? Or is there entry level stuff that you can get into for $400 or $500 and then work your way up to where you're a couple grand or more?
Yep. So that would be the best place. There are a couple manufacturers that already do pre-setup, so they already have arrow rest of some type, they already have a sight of some type, and they're probably in the $400 to $500 price range. Again, whatever's comfortable for your price point. Go with what's comfortable. Go with what feels good to shoot. Really, what fits well in the hand, that doesn't vibrate, that doesn't rattle your teeth out of your head when you let the arrow fly, and then just go off a price point. You can always add to, you can always change parts out, you can always upgrade down the road, but get started.
And people don't need to know this, but that needs to be into consideration that draw length, poundage, let off, all this stuff that would be foreign to 99% of the people that have never shot a bow before. I found out that it's maybe not as well known to a lot of people that have shot bows, and they've been doing things wrong because they never were taught or shown to do it right. Not guys like yourself or Guy de Plancher or
right.
Phil Mendoza or any of those guys.
Yep.
But somebody else that went to a Sportsman's Warehouse and maybe didn't get the right lesson.
They probably didn't get any coaching. They just bought a bow and went out and started shooting.
Yeah, and maybe they did get coaching. But to your point, try to educate yourself through a variety of different venues and see how that benefits you. You know, some of the guys that came to some of the Outdoorsman Day events that we had, and we've got the Miss Rodeo Colorado girls that come out and they do the shooting and stuff. It's remarkable how some of those gals who have never shot a bow would have a little bit of instruction.
They can get out and start slinging
they're
arrows.
actually flinging arrows pretty damn well.
Yep.
And then they're like, afterwards, they're like, I need to get a bow and I need to be able to go shoot this and I need to be able to do this. This is really fun.
And you got the other side. So Derek was out there, right? He came out and decided, all right, let's shoot the Bigfoot. So we shot the Bigfoot for a couple of rounds. Then we put the steel plate deer on it. And we put the 4-inch circle worth of foam at 78 yards. And even Derek got humbled, and he's a fairly good, experienced shooter. He got humbled by the mover just because lack of practice. So
At a moving target.
At a moving target.
Yeah. I went to a rodeo, this was probably 30 years ago, and they were throwing clay pigeons up in the air, and a guy was using a traditional piece of archery. And I don't recall if it was a longbow or a recurve or what, but he was shooting clay pigeons out of the air with
It can be done.
Yeah, and was very, very, very proficient with it. Now, I don't know how he did hunting or how he did target shooting, but I bet he was probably better than the average bear.
Yeah. So we Western Hunt Fest last year, Raton, we had a axis deer target at 86 yards on the mover, straight line mover. And we had a gentleman come walking through. He said, nobody would ever take that shot. Nobody's ever going to hit that foam. And my buddy that was running the button, he just looked at me and said, Sam, you're up. Okay, what's up? He said, nobody can hit it. Oh, cool. So I grabbed my bow. He hits the button. He gets moving. I draw the string back. I let the arrow fly. 8-ringed it. So not quite full vitals, but definitely in the rings at 86 yards, moving. The guy just looks at me and says, how? I said, unfair advantage. I own the business. I've been practicing on it for 2 years. I know exactly what it takes to get out there at distance and how my setup flies. So it can be done. This helps you build that level of technical skill set in order to do that. It's just about practice. So get out there, try it, see what works, what doesn't, what fits, what doesn't, and what's comfortable.
What's Sam Westfall do for family time?
My wife and I like to travel. I've got a 106-pound lab that we go out and we'll bird hunt. You know, once we won Prop 127, we had that pheasant hunt. So I took him out.
Not with a bow.
No. I considered it, but no. No. So but my wife and I like to travel. We like to go around the country and even around the world and see different things. So
what aspirations do you have to be able to? What do you want to go see? Where do you want to go?
So I said I want to be able to sell Archery N Motion off to somebody with a bunch of money, so that I can travel the world and hunt the rest of my life. When we were in Scotland 3 years ago, the roe deer were out and they were wandering around, and the tour guide said, we pay hunters to go out and shoot those things. I'm sorry, what? You pay hunters to go shoot them? How do I get signed up for this? Yeah. My wife just went, crap.
This turned into a bad deal.
Yeah, exactly. This did not play out the way I wanted it to. So I'd love to go back to Scotland, hunt roe deer for a week or two. Actually, I'd love to hunt most of Europe if I could. And then there's always a New Zealand red stag that I want to go play with. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, we look forward to continuing trying to help you along message-wise, and I know that the people that have been supportive of what we've done on 127 and Outdoorsman Days and Sportsman's Day at the Capitol and all the stuff that's going on would be, I think, tickled to death to be part of this. Do you have the ability, if somebody wanted to have your setup come to their event, do you charge for that?
Minor rental fee. Yep.
Okay. And you're willing to go set it up, do all the stuff, and
I'll run it for the day.
And I don't want to emphasize, maybe not like birthday parties and stuff.
No,
maybe
no.
you do.
But no, big events.
Yeah. If they want to do that, get in touch with you through the website.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Still the Archery in Motion website.
For the moving target, yep.
Okay.
I mean, you can reach me either way, but yes, they all go to the same. Eventually, they all come to me.
So you got the Archery in Motion, and you got the Valor Archery Challenge.
Correct.
And either way, it's all going to go to you.
Yep.
Okay. Look forward to working with you this summer. Appreciate the opportunity.
We're not done yet. I've told you that for 2 years now.
Yeah. you're stuck with us, aren't you?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of our community that actually came out and said what we did, like at Outdoorsman Days, was a continuation. Keep in mind that we did Outdoorsman Days before we actually had the ballot initiative that was filed. Right. And Outdoorsman Days is an extension of the Colorado Trappers and Predator Hunters Association rendezvous that they had. This year is the 50th year of that association,
really?
And I happen to be the president of that. CRWM was formulated back in 2016, 2017, and we became kind of the mediator, moderator, litigator, arbitrator on so many different things. And it's a pleasure to be able to work with, businesses and like-minded individuals that are beyond the politics side of things, but benefit off the politics or that need to be aware of and engage in the politics. So we appreciate the friendship and the relationship.
It's all about keeping everybody going in it.
That's the biggest thing in today's day and age.
Yep.
You got anything to say? Final closing words on anything that you got an observation or a rabbit hole you want to go down?
Probably the biggest piece is if you're considering archery, get signed up. If you're thinking about archery, get signed up. If you're looking for a different avenue besides mental health therapy, get signed up. That's what Valor's all about, is trying to help connect those dots in a different manner. Mental health is very much a thing that needs to be addressed right now, especially for the military and veteran community. I'm trying to bring a different avenue for that. Let's talk. So, and like I said, you're not done with me yet. But past that.
You mean right now? Or
No. Whatever.
No, we appreciate it, Sam. Appreciate the friendship. Appreciate the relationship.
Having me out.
For more information, get a hold of Sam Westfall with ValorArcheryChallenge.com.
Words are hard.
ValorArcheryChallenge.com and ArcheryInMotion.com.
Yep. Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.